Hi, welcome to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Get ready to revitalize your mind, body, and soul. We're here to inspire women who are looking to break free from old patterns and ideas to create a life of increased confidence and improved health. Say goodbye to limiting beliefs and hello to new possibilities. So kick back, get ready to have some fun, and let's dive in. We'll uncover tools and insights that can help you build a life that's truly nourishing, body and soul. Hi, I'm Tracy.
I'm Victoria.
And we're glad you're here with us today on the podcast. We have a fun topic today.
It is.
It's a very empowering topic. As part of the self-worth that we've been talking about.
Reveal.
What?
Reveal.
I am. As part of self-worth that we've been talking about. What happens if we need to work on our self-worth and what can we do about it? So last time we talked about what did we talk about last time? Recognizing that our past doesn't define us.
Menopause.
That's what we talked about last time.
Menopause.
I've just read so many things in between then and now. It's like, oh wait. But so today, a really powerful tool for that, and that is changing our relationship with rejection. Because rejection comes in so many forms and basically, in a lot of ways on a daily basis. Yeah. Daily basis.
Different places.
So learning to reframe that. Oh my goodness. Anyone who's ever raised a toddler 100% knows about rejection. Anyone who's ever either been a teenager or raised a teenager. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't raised one, but I have plenty of nieces and nephews.
Yeah. So we face rejection a lot of ways, basically on the daily. And so
my nieces and nephews were all beautiful and gracious, so in case you guys are listening.
Yes, but you were their mom, so
yeah. Well, I was their same age. I was like just older than them.
So you were their cool aunt, cousin, whatever.
Okay, I was their
aunt. There's generational. It's like you have nieces and nephews that are your age, and then your, as you call them, your little nieces and nephews.
That's their kids.
Yeah.
Those kids are, my little nieces and nephews are perfect. Every single one of them. Perfect.
Of course.
And I would say that even if my nephews and nieces weren't.
Never an eye roll among them.
I'm sorry, I'm not rejecting you. That is a very unusual experience.
So here's a quote, and you might know who this quote is from, but if you don't, it will probably surprise you. This quote is, I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. That's a big statement. And that statement was made by Michael Jordan. So 9,000 missed shots, over 9,000. 300 lost over 300 games, almost 300 games, 26 times missed the game-winning shot.
That he knows that.
Yeah, that he knows that. And but what I love most about this quote, you can read that and go, okay, so just keep trying. That's a good, just keep trying quote. But the next sentence, I think, is what makes it most powerful. And he finishes it by saying, and that is why I succeed.
Yeah.
Like you don't get the success without the quote unquote failure.
I like to talk about baseball because I love baseball and it's coming. Spring training is here. Everybody, most people, even if you don't follow baseball, know that baseball averages, 300.
The batting average.
Yeah, batting average.
How many hits you get out of every time you're at bat?
Yeah. So 300, but it used to be, now it's like 270, but whatever. So I'll use 300 because it's easier. So that's like the greatest hitters right now. Like the elite top hitters miss 2/3 of the time. But what happens is, and I don't know what happened previous to this, I know that they watched it, but now they have all kinds of cameras and things.
Mhm.
And they start examining, okay, why is your swing off? Like,
Mhm.
would it be better if your grip was here or grip was
Mhm.
there? And just like going over and over all the reasons for the failure. And I think that is like, you know how the same mistake keeps happening,
Mm.
or you date the same guy
Mm.
in different
Different
forms.
name, different age, same
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I think like 2 times you date a really crappy guy, it's crap luck on your part. But the third time you're dating the same kind of crappy guy, I don't want to say it's you because that guy's crappy, but
There's a pattern that you need to
yeah,
look for.
yeah. And see, here's the rejection. Here, well, let's examine why. I mean, that's why probably he said that's why he succeeded.
Mhm.
Because he examined all, he obviously knew every single number. So he obviously examined why he missed the shot and adjusted.
And
Course
just
correct.
that I really don't even want to try to think how many shots in practice, starting from when he was a kid and picked up a basketball. How many times has that man aimed for the hoop?
Mhm.
I don't even want to know. It's,
Mhm.
I mean, just the number of times
Mhm.
that he did that to get to the level that he was. And so it's
Mhm.
like, even with that, how much more? I mean, baseball is such a good example of that because a really good hitter would have 250 batting average. That
Mhm.
means that 75% of the time he gets up to bat, he doesn't get a hit.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he's one of the best, 75%. And so it would be, if you take those odds and replace it to something else,
Yeah.
you know, how would we respond to that? 75% of the time, I try to make that sale, I fail.
Mhm.
So I'm a failure. 75% of the time that I've tried to make this cake, it's come out terrible.
Yeah.
I am not a baker. 75% of the time that I have tried to make a new friend, it doesn't work out well. I'm just not a good friend. I'm not social. 70 is like,
Ouch, 75%, you
I
try
know,
to make
that's
a new
good.
friend? How sad is that, though? That would be really hard, 75%. Well, those 75% are crappy people, obviously. If they're not willing to be
No,
friends with you,
no,
they
no.
are crappy people.
We don't have to be best friends with everybody, okay?
I'm just saying, 75
it's
is a
just that-
lot for making friends.
It is, but it's still, it's like, okay, what's going on here? Refine. And we've talked, in our Halloween episode, we dressed up like scientists. It's like, go into this with a study mindset.
Mhm.
Gather the data, look at the
Mhm.
facts, and it's really easy to get, when we're told, you know, if we're told often that we're too loud, if we're told often that we're too quiet, if we're told often that we're too lazy or that we have too much energy, we start believing these things. And it's like,
If
that's
you're told you're funny, often you grew up thinking you're funny.
And then your rejection comes later.
Yes, but no one laughs at the joke or they don't get it. But the problem is I've been told funny so many times, like if they don't get the joke, I get the joke. And it's funny to me. And sometimes that's all. I've talked to my brother about this. He's the exact same way. We'll tell a joke, and if it's like this for other people, we're like, our jokes are so sophisticated, they go over at people's heads. Ha ha ha, we're super funny. Yeah.
See, but that's a healthy relationship with rejection in that area.
Mhm.
Because you know, other people go, wow, I guess they're just really not funny.
I worked at a place where I had a really smart, so what's going over their head, really smart people, really wonderful, fun, everything. My sense of humor is really sarcastic. And so I had a friend who got my sense of humor, but most people in the company didn't. So if we were in the break room and I said something that I thought was funny in some like whatever, and there was somebody else there, my friend would turn to the other person and go, she's being funny right now. She didn't say I was trying to be funny. She did say she's being funny right now. So ignore her. So anyway, yeah. I probably failed 90% of the time there.
And yet you still think you're funny. See what
Well,
a good relationship with
yes,
rejection you
because
have in
my
that area.
entire life I was told I was funny.
So how do we do this? Like, how do we change our relationship with rejection and to look at it in ways that help it be a really good tool? And if we look at what it has, most of the time, when we don't do something, it's out of fear of rejection or fear of failure. The question you may have heard already is that, what would you do if you knew that there's no way you could fail? What might you be willing to try if you knew 100% that you wouldn't fail? And that's a fun question to spin out on. But then also it can help us go, so then why haven't I done that? Why haven't I made that step? Why haven't I taken that course? Why haven't I pursued that thing? And if it's out of fear of failure, then maybe it's time to look at, maybe I want to change my relationship with that, and look at it in a different way. And so
one of the things too that she said that in this book Worthy, she was talking about failure actually being a protection, you know, and she was talking about God protecting us, or well, she was talking about God, but like how it could be a protection, like God saying that person is not going to be good for you. So the fact that they rejected you, thank you, I was saving you for that, you know, or that job that you didn't get, that would have been horrible for you. So yeah, you didn't get that job, so this opened up for you. So I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it. And it kind of worked in, I actually haven't connected these two, but kind of worked like that for me because I interviewed for a job. So I interviewed for a job at a gaming company in downtown San Francisco. Super cool, super awesome. The people, I think there was like 15 people max that worked there. So it was really small. So I interviewed with everyone. And, you know, I think in my second or third interview, they took me out to a big expensive lunch, you know, in downtown San Francisco. And I was like, we had wine, they were cheering. And I was like, I guess I got the job, like, I guess. And I was excited. And so they had me interview with the CEO last. And so I go to his office and it's fairly small. And it has really, really low lighting and like lava lamps. And he invited me to sit on the floor.
Exactly what you're expecting from an interview.
Yes. It's like, yes, exactly. I mean, that it is unusual. But he was very serious about it. Like if I had that office and I made people sit on the floor, I would
It would
not
be whimsical.
yes, it would be whimsy and fun and quirky. He was very serious about it, because whatever. So I go and I sit on a pillow next to him, and he's interviewing me, and I am way nervous because I didn't like that interview wouldn't take place nowadays because I didn't feel entirely comfortable in this windowless office with the door closed, sitting on the floor with lava lamps going. So that was already making me a little bit nervous. And then he asked his like all important question. He asked what my favorite game was, video game. And so I had a boyfriend years before that who worked on it. He headed the Nintendo 64. He was really young, super young for the job, and we were in our 20s, mid-20s, and he was in charge of just like building it and all of that. And he also got to do one game. And so he named one of the characters after me. And I got to do a little voice. A little Game Boys, and you know, it was named Kiwi because my parents grew kiwis, and yeah. So years later, I am asked what my favorite game is. Well, the obvious answer actually should have been whatever game the last game they made. Yeah, the last one the company made. Which I don't even know if I even knew that, which is unusual for me. Anyway, so I told him, like, this game is my favorite game because I'm in it. Like, it's me based, right? It's my favorite. Obviously, it's gonna be my favorite game. Well, he didn't like that answer. And I didn't get the job. And I was really, really sad because I thought this was like going to be the perfect job. It's a young company, or they're growing, they're expanding, and I'm going to be part of it from the ground floor, basically. And it didn't happen. So a few weeks later, I get a call, and it's a CFO from another company over in Emeryville, California. And yes, they would like to interview me. And it's a job for it's an animation school that trains animators by using other animators from Pixar and what have you. So I was like, well, I don't want to go to Emeryville. I don't want to do that, but I'll go to an interview. It was, and I got the job. And as I was doing my last interview, I was over at Kinko's running off copies of my resume. And this woman grabbed the resume and she said, "You're going for a job interview." And I said, "Yes." And she like held the resume and she said, "You are going to get this job." Like, I don't know, maybe I would have got the job anyway. Maybe she's clairvoyant, maybe not, but even so, it made me feel like comfortable. And I think about, and then I talked to my CFO and asked why. She called me once I was working there and everything, like what made her call me. And she said, "My best friend works at the gaming company." And she said, "You need to interview this girl that we were too stupid not to hire." And so like that was a rejection, like a big rejection. I needed a job.
Yeah.
And
everything so good.
and
I'm
yet
glad smart.
opened up a job for me that was like the best you could ever have.
Yeah.
He used my talents in ways that no one had ever used before.
Yeah.
And all my crappy things that I didn't do very well, like they supplemented that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a time when, you know, if that's trans, like God was like, talk about pilot wings, talk about pilot wings. And I talked about pilot wings and didn't get the job,
Yeah.
you know, so it saved me.
Because if you would have gotten a job with the gaming company, that one obviously never would have opened up for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we don't know, but we can look at rejection. Sometimes that's a very clear time where you could say, okay, this rejection opened up this door. And so, you know, that was protecting you from that so that you can have this. We don't always get to see that connection that clearly, that quickly, but we can have trust that a lot of the time that is what rejection is. It's a form of protection. It still doesn't feel great, but if we can look at it like that, and then not the same as that, but, and again, this goes back to high school. So it sounds, you know, now I look back and I go, in the eternal scheme of things, not a big deal. But when I was a senior in high school, I was one of the theater kids. And at our school, we did just a non-musical in the fall and a musical in the spring every year. And as with most high schools, you know, the older you get in the school, the more likely you are to get the bigger roles. And so it was coming up for spring musical, and my best friend had gotten the leading part in the fall show. She didn't sing. And then so spring, the auditions are coming around, and everybody was like, "Oh, well, we know who's gonna get know who's gonna get the lead in this one." And I'd be like, "Don't say that. We don't know." Like, "Oh, no, there's no way you're getting the lead in this show." And everybody was saying that. And then so auditions come and go, and cast list goes up, and I did not get the lead. And not only that, but in the show that we did, there was like a female lead, and then kind of a very secondary comedic lead, and there's another girl who's more comedically oriented than I was, and then all the other female roles were like basically just, you know, very little, not much of anything roles. And so not only did I not get the lead, I was basically part of the chorus kind of thing. And that was really hard. It was really hard at that point in time.
Yeah, because you're in high school too. I mean, you know, So you
Yeah.
sort of can deal with rejection a little bit easier. It's not great, but if you're older, but high
Yeah.
school, like everything
Yeah.
is live or die.
Yeah. And it was in the spring, so it would have been close to graduation. It would have been this
Mhm.
beautiful capstone,
Yeah.
this wonderful time in
exactly.
high school, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up being like, no, we're done with you kind of feeling. And
They need people who sing though. They need a chorus.
but it was so it was really hard. It's really hard to go to rehearsals and all of that. But ultimately, as I was going through it, I just thought this is just a really stinky situation that I just have to get through. I could not imagine that anything good would come of that. And this is not one of those. And then I went to college and I got the lead. No, it wasn't that kind of thing. It wasn't any kind of Cinderella ending to this. But I learned two of the really most valuable lessons of my life from that. What I felt at the time was a major rejection. I learned that regardless of how anybody basically casts us, we're always the
Interesting.
lead in our own life.
Yes.
We are the lead character in our own life, and we need to act like that. We need to
That's
recognize
good.
that we are the lead in our life.
Yeah, take notes.
No matter how anybody
That
casts
was
us.
good.
Also, though, and I think even more importantly, I realized that it's really important to be a good supporting character. Really important when we're not the main one in a particular story that's going on. How can we be the good supporting character?
Yeah.
And that's such a valuable thing to understand. And understanding that the supporting characters are not any less important than the main character.
Can I just give you some kudos here? Like kudos to
No, you can't.
Kudos to you as a teenager to not just walk away. Like, I think a lot of people in that situation, when they didn't get the part that they wanted and they didn't even get the secondary part, would have been like, fun, I'm out. Peace out, guys, have fun. Because it was painful and you still did it. I think that's really to be commended.
Well,
for a teenager, especially.
Thank you for that. It didn't even occur to me to not go because
See,
I just loved it too much.
I think that's commendable.
And it's just, it's like, I don't know. Anyway,
No,
I felt like that's what I was good at. And so to have that be like, no, apparently this is not what you're good at. That was like, oh man, maybe I just need to learn some more,
Those lessons that you learned are amazing.
Yeah. And so that, in that regard, that rejection, it wasn't it may have been, because I think if I would have gotten the lead in that show, who knows how insufferable I may have been,
Maybe you wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't even be doing a podcast.
Yeah,
You wouldn't be
going on
too
my
good.
Yeah. Everything goes fine for me in my gold blessed sunshine life.
Yeah,
and
you're in the lead of the Book of Mormon. On I don't know if there's women leads in Book of Mormon. I haven't seen it, but on Broadway.
So yeah, it's just who knows what would have happened with that, but it was just just these really great lessons that I learned from that. And so the 4 steps, let's talk about what the process that Jamie Kern-Lema, who wrote, were what she talks about, the steps that she talks about for the process. She has 4 R's. The first is to reveal, to identify the current default. Oh, this is a really good one. The default definition you give to rejection when it happens, or the ones you use to talk to yourself out of trying. These are often disempowering and happen automatically without intention. An example of this. So if you experience some kind of rejection, whatever that may look like, what's your initial response to it? I think I know people who, it's like something will happen and they'll go, oh, well, that's just my luck.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean that's just your luck? This happened and this happened and then this is also just your luck. But when something good happens, when there's not a rejection, if there's an acceptance, you don't go, oh, well, that's just my luck.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My friends, whenever they or all men, they go through a breakup and it'd be like, all men are stupid and, none of them are good, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. For you. Yeah. Like they're all going to be bad and stupid until one isn't.
Yeah.
And then it's great. Ish.
The other ones weren't
Mostly
good people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just of course, everything's gonna feel like a failure until the success, and this success is worth all
Yeah.
the failures, hopefully.
So, just noticing what our initial response to rejection is. Is it something that we let get to us and we figure like, "Oh, well, I guess this is what I deserve," or, whatever.
Mhm.
What's our initial, or is it that fight, that,
Mhm.
well, they're just all stupid. Well, no.
Or is there,
Obviously, in this example, all men on the entire planet are not stupid. That was not correct, but that's our initial response, is to throw up that protection for ourselves.
or like your first response to rejection is relief.
Oh,
I've had that
mm,
where it's just a relief and I think, oh, thank heavens.
yeah. So that's something to look at too. So,
Mhm.
and then the second is to redefine, to create new empowering definitions that you're going to assign to rejection or failures when they happen, or when you've tempted not to try out of fear of them happening.
Mhm.
So that goes with what you're talking about with the, so what, how can I look at this differently? And that one is that was a protection, that you were
Yeah.
protected from that
Yeah.
job
Mhm.
so that you could get this better job.
Mhm.
That's a really good.
Well, and her example too is that she, so Jamie Lynn, all of a
Jamie
sudden,
Kern Lima.
yeah, yes, sorry. Anyway, Jamie, she started It Cosmetics in her living room and worked and worked and worked and ended up selling it to L'Oreal for $1 billion, became, a billionaire, and like all things that have followed. But along the way, they met with a venture capitalist who they thought they would get the funding, and they were very excited by that. And at the end, they didn't get the funding. And so she asked the CEO, what could I have done differently? And he said, well, we just didn't think that we could see someone with your body looking like you selling cosmetics. And so that was a sting, I'm sure,
Oh,
probably
yeah.
more than the sting. I think
Yeah.
she said she went into the car and cried. But like that allowed her to continue, first of all, and then get the big contract. And she said the venture capitalist messaged her the day that she got the $1 billion, and he said, sorry, we missed out on the big one.
Yeah, I was
So-
very wrong. But yeah, and because she talks about learning to not take it personally.
Yeah,
To not take it, and
yeah. It's
most
hard to
things,
say.
most things we can spin, like, you can, for any role that I didn't get, I could look at it and go, okay, I don't need to take this personally. It's that they were looking for something different than I had to offer. So, in this job, they were looking for something different than I had to offer. Like somebody who likes our games better than anybody else's, whatever it was. And so it's like to not take it personally. And then she tells that story about when he said to her flat out, we just don't think somebody that looks like you, that people will buy cosmetics from. It's like, whew. But she talked about how she really was like, all right, I need to not take that personally. And that's about as personal as it gets.
Yeah.
But personal from him saying that to her, but she was able to look at that and go, that's not about me.
Yeah.
That's about him and his views. And so in that regard, it's not personal. And that is, man, that's a superpower to be able to do that.
Well, I know, speaking of video games, that is all that's there are obstacles and rejection, ultimate rejection until you finish the game. And you learn from every obstacle you manage to get through, and sometimes you get special powers for getting through certain obstacles. So I mean, yeah.
Fabulous life lessons from gaming.
Yeah, there's value in, like Michael Jordan said, there's value in failure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so revisiting and reframing is the next of her steps. And that we can go back, not just to we can get ourselves to the point where current rejections, when our teenager rolls their eyes at us for the 50th time that day, you just go, okay, all right. So in current rejections, we can get this working, but also we can go back to prior rejections. we can go back to, maybe that engagement that was broken, or that job that we didn't get, or that thing that our parents said to us, or we can go back to past rejections that we've had, or past failures that we've had, and we can reframe those. I mean, I know that we could both come up with examples, and I think that I know everybody can come up with an example of some time in the past when they felt rejected. I want to talk about Jamie's that she uses because it's such like, it goes back to the very beginning. She was adopted. And how many people choose to look at adoption as that they were rejected? My mom, my dad, they didn't want me, and so they gave me away. And that her parents that adopted her, they worked a lot, and so she was left alone a lot when she was a kid, and that can feel like rejection too. And then something changed for her. It was, she didn't grow up believing this. She grew up, feeling kind of rejected about this, but then she was able to reframe. She goes, you know what, actually, no, I wasn't rejected, I was chosen.
Yeah.
I was obviously chosen by my birth parents. They chose me, but also my mom was not in a situation to keep me, and yet she chose me anyway. She chose to give me life. And so looking at that, I mean, that goes back to the very, very beginning of her life, and to look at it as that was not rejection. That was being chosen.
That's where a therapist helps.
And
I'm just going to say, like, therapists really do help on that. Like, they can help you reframe pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
Mostly.
So learning how to reframe anything that we term as that we feel was rejection. And then revel. This is a trickier one, and it sounds like, oh my gosh, you're just crazy, but revel in the rejection ahead. And why?
Ahead?
Yeah. Know that we're not going to stop facing rejection. It's going to keep coming.
I didn't think we're going to talk about the future of my rejections.
Well, it's going to keep happening. This is life. And so that's when you go, okay, cool. Let me get my scientist lab coat on and look at how, and really, when we look at it like that, it's like every rejection is a chance to prove how strong we are. Like, I am one of the ones that kept going. I kept going, and I'm gonna keep going. And Jamie talks about that, if she obviously just wrote this book, Worthy. Self-worth is something that she struggled with on not realizing that she was until relatively recently in her life. But she said, if there's one thing I am, it is I'm a master at rejection. I have a great relationship with rejection. Like, bring it on. And we had talked before, you and I, just about, I did not choose a career in a performing arts, but I'm so grateful for the experiences that I had as a performing artist, because it taught me at a pretty young age I got to the point where I could literally stand on a stage by myself and have everybody giving me notes, telling me what they thought I did wrong. And it's, when you're younger, that's a lot harder to hear.
It's hard to hear.
Then,
that would be hard to hear at my age.
Well, I get to the point now where it's like, all right, but just tell me. Tell me. Because I can't do anything about it.
You can't grow. You can't learn.
And I can't, and sometimes
you can't become Michael Jordan.
Well, I had this experience with it was just this like weekend thing that I was doing, and it was I've talked about before the what do you want? That same place that I was, we did this other activity, and there were two friends of mine that were not staff, but we're helping with this weekend. And one of the things was there was this exercise where you just had to stand, and they would give you feedback. And what
kind of feedback?
Whatever they felt like you needed to hear.
Was it bad?
It was just the
was it like your shirt needs to change, or was it like
quit
telling dumb jokes?
No, well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
So these two friends that I was close to, both were there on staff. And so
Mhm.
other people came through and gave me feedback, and it was like, okay. And it really was just, this is how I see you, kind of a thing. And this is where I think that maybe you're holding yourself back, or, things that you may not be realizing that you're doing, kind of a thing, where you're kind of sabotaging yourself.
I can't think of anything more terrifying.
And
I'd rather jump out of a plane.
the thing was, my one friend, oh man, she lit into me and she just went off. And the funny thing was that as she was doing that, it wasn't affecting me at all, because I could feel that's like, this is so much more about her than it is about me. And then I had my other friend came through, and I don't think he said anything else to me except for, you play small way too often. With your kids, with your husband, with the things that you want to do, you play too small. And he said it just nice and calm like that. There was no, venom behind it or anything. And man, that to this day, I can't tell you what my friend who went off on me said, but what he said, the way that it hit, it's like, oh, yeah. And so to be able to take feedback, that's such a valuable thing that I learned from my time as a performing artist, was to take feedback like that and to want that feedback, because as you get that a lot, then you can, when it's like, okay, that fits. Okay, that fits. No, that doesn't fit. That's you and that's your thing. If somebody says to you, I really think you should know you're just not that funny. You're going to hear that and you're going to go, oh, okay. Because you're going to think they just don't get me and that's their thing.
Yeah.
You're not going to
think.
think.
That is exactly what
you're
I would
not,
think.
Yeah, you're not going to think it's me, I'm not funny. And so you get, the more you're willing to just hear feedback, it doesn't mean you're going to take all of it in.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to really.
And some you're going to be able to take in easier than others.
Yeah.
Like some aspects.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't
So,
think I'm funny, that's okay.
But yeah, to revel in rejection.
Yeah.
Look at it as an opportunity to learn more about yourself, and to, to build up your resilience muscles, and to create that resilience. And man, if there's a skill that we all need to have in life, it's being resilient.
Yes, for sure.
Because that will get us through anything. It doesn't, we don't have to prepare for a certain trial that may or may not happen. It's just building up our ability to be resilient. And that's so revealing, redefining rejection, revisiting and reframing any rejection that we've had, and reveling in future rejection for the things that we know we're going to learn from it. And that doesn't mean it's going to hurt, not going to hurt. But even in the hurt, we can go, okay, this really stings. Like when my friend said to me, you play small. Man, that was like,
ooh,
okay. That one hit. And that doesn't feel good. But knowing that, because now I see that, now I can do something about it. If I wasn't unaware of it, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And so that's a position of power. So yeah. Even reveling in rejection to come.
That gives you opportunity to build your resiliency muscles.
Yep. So great way to nourish your soul.
Yes.
And as we do that, it actually, when that talking about rejection, how many of us reject our bodies basically on the daily in small ways or large? So it's actually a good way to
the rejection that we do to ourselves. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, because we tell ourselves no often before anybody else even gets a chance to.
Yeah.
So yeah. So nourishing our body and our soul by reframing and defining our relationship with rejection.
Yes.
Great way to build self-worth.
See everybody.
See you next
Have a good
time.
week.
Hey, if you want to help us grow this podcast that we're having fun doing, like and subscribe.
And comment.
Oh, yes.
Please comment. We will comment back.
Yes, we will. Hey, it's Tracy. If this was helpful and you'd like more, follow me on Instagram at tlastel.nourishing body and soul, or on Facebook or YouTube at Nourishing Body and Soul, or you can find my website at nourishingbodysoul.com. Thanks for tuning in to Nourishing Body and Soul, the podcast. Before we wrap up, we just want to remind you that the information we share in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended for medical advice. While we hope you find our discussions helpful, we strongly recommend that you seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, or any other aspect of your health. We also want to make it clear that the host, guests, and producers of this podcast are not responsible for any adverse effects or consequences that may result from the use of any information or suggestion discussed in this podcast. We care about your well-being, but we can't take responsibility for individual outcomes. By listening to this podcast, you agree to indemnify and hold harmless the host, guests, and producers of this podcast from and against any and all claims, damages, liabilities, costs, and expenses arising from your use of the information provided in this podcast. We're so grateful for your support, and we hope you keep listening and learning with us. Thanks.